evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live. Today, we are going to be looking at 10 ways to adapt to climate change. Basically, just what we're doing, 10 ways climate change impacts homeowners. As always, I am here for Hugo, and it is my pleasure to have you spend a little bit of time here with me every night, learning a little bit more about real estate, how it benefits you and those around you, and really what it can do for yourself and those around you. I am your realtor, Hugo. Ah, what a day, what a day, what a day. If you want to check out that QR code in the corner. That is for my website, yourrealtorhugo.com. So feel free and check that out. You have resources to the MLS, to new listings, and statistics as well. So feel free and check that out. Today, let's get started on talking about climate change and how it impacts homeowners, because more than anything, the biggest changes that we're going to be seeing in a lot of the major cities is going to be the influx or the exodus of people from certain places. The pandemic pushed people out into the suburbs, and it made people want to go out into more a country, more removed rural areas, more space, more larger parcels of land. So with that, we had a spreading out of people, not such as high density of people in major cities. But again, we have yet to see, as we are starting to see huge differences in costs for living in certain states over others. So today we're going to be talking just a little bit about it. And I really do encourage you to check out the realtor.com South by Southwest panel that they had with Danielle Hale and the chief economist for realtor.com, and a couple of other scholars about climate change and how it impacts homeownership. It's really on the ball. It's really poignant. It's about maybe 30 minutes, but it's really worth your time to check out and see what they think the next 10 to 20 years could look like for us, and how really it's a crisis, not just on the climate change aspect, but if you couple that information with the other information that we had presented maybe a couple of weeks ago by GCAR and Bright, about how we're really limited on housing here in the area, it starts to bring into perspective why climate change matters so much to home ownership. And really, your little bit that you do here and there around your community can really impact the planet as a whole. So there are tons of things that homeowners can do, and we can talk about that another day. But these are the 10 ways that climate change impacts homeownership. Number one, increased insurance costs. That's one that I've mentioned several times already. As extreme weather events become more frequent, insurance premiums for homeowners are rising to cover the heightened risk of property damage. And it's just cost of doing business, where there's more going to be more payouts, and that's going to raise rates for everybody. Number two, property damage. Climate related disasters like floods, hurricanes, and wildfires can cause significant damage to homes, leading to costly repairs or even total loss. That's the rough one, because the displacement time, the loss of your personal belongings, there's only but so much that you're, monetarily going to be able to get back. Of course, you could always rebuild and remake, but that all takes time, and time is very, very valuable. So, you know, it's unfortunate when these things happen, but they are acts of God, and You really have to just adapt and you know try to find a home as soon as possible. And that's why we have these organizations like FEMA that come in and help these families, because it can be so overwhelming to have to do this. You put your all your heart and savings and soul into a property, and it's just all ripped away from you by a natural disaster. It can be devastating mentally. Number three, decreased property values. Properties in areas prone to climate related risks may see a decline in value as buyers factor in the potential for future damages and increased insurance costs. Did you guys hear the story of the community of mansions that were on a beach bed? And this happens in several beaches around the world, actually, that invested $500,000 in building a dune of sand to protect their properties from the tide during the last major storm that they went through. And basically that only protected them for like about maybe like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. But basically, they had been very happy that that had been so successful because it had accomplished what it had seek to do. Um, those homes weren't that close to the water when they were built. It's things are changing, and it's really that case right there. You can see the difference where it really, it's like, wow, okay, things are really, they're getting more dramatic, especially tides. They're getting more ferocious. Some of these storms are getting more fierce. It's really, it can be devastating. Number four, higher energy bills. Rising temperatures and more extreme weather conditions can lead to increased energy usage for heating and cooling, resulting in higher utility bills for homeowners. This was something really interesting that I found out when they were talking about heat maps and how heat can impact home ownership and how many extra days on market we have. Extra days on market, excuse me. I'm such a real I meant to say extra days a year. Um, the country as a whole spends over 100 degrees. I can't remember statistically what it was. I think it was 10 years. It was um 14 days, and now we've doubled that to 28. So it's insane how much warmer the planet has gotten. And it's just globally. It's not just here. We don't live in a small, vacuum. We it's a global issue, and that's really the long and the short of it. That if as a globe we don't do something to rectify this or correct our behavior on this, then we are all going to suffer. Of course, varying degrees, and of course here it's going to be a little bit more immediate if we're all spending more on these fossil fuels. But as a globe, we are all responsible for our usage and our intake and our output. Number five, health risks. Climate change can exacerbate health issues like allergies or respiratory illnesses due to increased pollen levels, mold growth, and air pollution. There are just certain allergens, certain bacteria, viruses, it's all sorts of things. They can only thrive in certain um, climates, and we have yet to open up the Pandora's box of other diseases that could happen as the planet starts to warm. We have a huge ice cap that has not melted, that houses tons of old and bacteria and genetic data from who knows how many millennia ago that we are probably not prepared to deal with. So as the climate warms up, that will undoubtedly, play a role in levels of water rising and then people getting together, mixing, mingling, and of course, just heat. How much hotter these places get if there are wildfires. We've seen such an uptick in wildfires. Just the other day, isn't there one in Virginia right now, over in the Shenandoah Valley? It's horrible. They can be horribly devastating, not just to the wildlife, but to homes more than anything, because you know it's all bad all the way around. There's nothing positive in a wildfire. Number 6, water scarcity. Droughts and water shortages can impact homeowners by limiting access to clean water for household use, irrigation, and landscaping. You have droughts. You have times when you could get fined if you get reported for using your water too much. It happens. The resources are very limited. All this water has to be cleaned, or if it's being used for an outside source, then it has to be at least to some level what they call potable, so drinkable. And especially if it's coming from a public source. Now, if it's coming from a private source, that's all your responsibility. You have to be responsible and make sure that it's digestible, drinkable water. But yeah, keep that in mind. That's why wells can be such a headache when you're selling them, buying them on a property, because they come with their own investment just to make sure that it's consistently good water. Number 7, pest inspections. Warmer temperatures and changes in precipitation patterns can create ideal conditions for pests like mosquitoes, termites, and rodents, posing health risks and property damage. Now, this year, you are going to see something that hasn't happened in about 17 to 23 years, I think. Um, Cicadas are coming back this year, and they're coming back during the lunar eclipse. So sometime in the middle of April, you are going to see a huge influx of cicadas and these huge bugs. If you've never seen cicadas, they're quite big, they're quite loud, and they are in this area. But two big broods of them are actually both coming out at the same time, and these are animals. Well, they're insects that lay dormant in the ground. For about 7 to 13 years, depending on what type of brood they are. And depending on the temperature in the ground, they will come out. And once they come out enough times, that they'll get closer depending on how many years, and just a whole bunch of different processes that they have. And then they'll finally come out. And when they come out, all they do is procreate, and then start the next brood. And then it's eat, survive, procreate, lay eggs, and then start all over again. It is crazy. So to see that many of them together, I I can only imagine what it's going to look like this April. So number 8, home insurance accessibility. In regions with high risk of climate related disasters, homeowners may struggle to find affordable insurance coverage or face denial of coverage altogether. It is rough out there for some people that are trying to find coverage. It's really, I would say that people are not finding coverage. It's just, is the coverage affordable? That's always going to be a question. Um, Houses are not like cars where a house needs to be insurable, for your safety and everything. That's why you do inspections and stuff like that. I'm very hard pressed to find a situation where a home would be uninsurable, but I'm sure there's an exception to everything. So, that's why I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that one. But more than anything else, the risk that a flood could happen, a risk that a fire could happen, if you see tornadoes, so if you're in that area in the middle of the country, those are all things that can impact your rates. And the way that insurance works, if I'm not correct, if I'm correct, is that it stays with the home. So if a repair is done, it's a record on the house, and it's called the clue report, where it all the insurance companies can see it, so there's no hiding of the information. So that's why you have to be very careful when you use your insurance. It should only be in a catastrophe situation, because for minor things it might not even be worth it. Number nine, infrastructure damage. Climate related events can damage critical infrastructures like roads, bridges, and utilities, disrupting services and affecting homeowners' access to essential amenities, even their own homes sometimes. So it can be rough when stuff goes haywire. And I know we had a couple of storms last year or the year before that were pretty devastating for some people. So, as time goes by, look at your trees, look at your um, vegetation, look at, is this going to fall on my house? Is there potential? There's no way to predict it all, but you could definitely do things to be preventive in the maintenance of your landscape to make sure that you're taking care of this stuff. Now, if you take care of your stuff, that's great. You're doing your responsibility. But if your neighbor doesn't do it, and your neighbor's stuff falls on your stuff, unfortunately, they're responsible for it. So that can be a whole series of other issues we can talk about how to mitigate problems with other landlords or your neighbors, and what some recourses are there. But um, yeah, it can definitely damage a lot of the big infrastructures, like your utilities, like your water, your lights, for several days. We're very lucky here that a lot of our major infrastructure is backed up on a grid, but still, can be inconvenient. Number 10, regulatory changes. Government responses to climate change, such as building codes and updates in zoning regulations, may require homeowners to make costly retrofits or modifications to comply with new standards. This is precisely why you are seeing people fight so much for the rem- proposed removal of gas stoves. A lot of people have noted studies that they are hurtful to the environment and to the tenants, and can cause cases of asthma and respiratory diseases, um, if not properly serviced. A lot of these major, establishments, like apartment buildings, some of these townhouse communities, they have gas stoves. So there has been several proposals to deal with that, and there's a big push because, of course, that's a huge utility company that is involved there. So there are big forces at play that can cause regulatory changes to expedite or get bogged down. But more than anything else, climate change is a big reason why some of these building codes and regulations need to be changed, because the climate has changed. These areas have changed. The usable ground that we have already to build on without damaging the ecosystem any further is limited. And that's why you're seeing possibly older buildings that are renewable, probably built within the last 30 years, 40 years, being, kind of done up and upscaled. And it's going to be very interesting to see how urban sprawl kind of happens, and how we see more and more people just spread out throughout the country, because there's still land out there to be bought all over the country. And even though it feels like you can't buy a house, and a house is so expensive in this area, there's still places in the world where you can buy a property for $1. As long as you don't burn it down, it's worth 3 million. Good lord. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you are just tuning in right now, I am Hugo Quintanilla, a licensed realtor in Maryland with Long and Foster, North Potomac, Rockville. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free and leave them on your platform of choice. But today's topic was embracing eco-resilience, 10 ways climate change inspires homeowners to really thrive. And we talked about how they climate change is impacting homeownership. Number one, increased insurance costs. Number two, property damage. Number three, decreased property values. Number four, higher energy bills. Number five, health risks. Number six, water scarcity. Number seven, pest infestations. Number eight, home insurance accessibility. Number nine, infrastructure damage. And number 10, regulatory changes. So that's really a lot of how it can hurt the everyday person, because there are a lot of people that feel that, hey, I can't make a difference, or it doesn't impact me, or you know it's not happening. At the end of the day, we got to look at the statistics, we got to look at the numbers, and we got to look at your pocketbook. It's hurting people's pockets. These insurances are really getting out of hand. Property values are going up, and their taxes on these values are pushing people out of some of these homes. So I think more than anything else, we are. Everyone talks about the missing middle, so I can elaborate more about that. Well, but yeah, stay positive out there, guys, and do what you can to recycle and use sustainable materials and companies that work sustainably and ethically, because it's everyone's trying to do their own little bit to reduce their use and recycle. And it's just, again, part of saving and administering your funds and your money and your resources properly. There's enough for everyone to have what they need to survive. No one should have everything, but we all know that capitalism doesn't work that way. So again, I digress. I am Hugo Quintanilla, your tour, located in Maryland, licensed in Maryland with Long and Foster, North Potomac, Rockville, specializing in Montgomery County. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, my phone number 240-389-4846. My email is hugo@lnf.com, and my website is yourrealtourhugo.com. So again, thank you. I appreciate you all. I will be back tomorrow with a recap of the top real estate stories of the week, the real estate rundown. And yeah, tune in, learn something, hang out with me, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a great night.